My name is Lauren Stevens, and I'm the Director of Social Ministries at the Salvation Army here in Greenville County. And I'm sure, most folks can recognize the Salvation Army for one reason or another, but specifically here in Greenville, I oversee all of our services that we provide to folks experiencing homelessness, to folks who are on sort of the margin of financial hardship, of just trying to make ends meet. We operate a food pantry that allows for folks who are food insecure to, refill their cabinets and their pantries with things that they can, hold on to for a bit more stability down the road. We also intervene with crises that sort of pop up around Greenville County, as well as we have a drug and alcohol rehabilitative program here on our campus. We house all of those programs on one piece of property right in downtown Greenville. We've been here for over 100 years, and the Salvation Army has been sort of doing the most good, if you will, since 1865, and it was started originally in London. So it is a pleasure of my life to serve in this capacity. It truly is. I'm a native to Greenville County. I grew up, going to church at Buncombe Street United Methodist Church, and as a sprout at Buncombe Street, I volunteered on the campus that I now oversee. And so it's a really cool circle of life that I have been able to take part in my history here. I'm very excited to serve with GHA in all of the various capacities that it affords me to do that in. I think that GHA is critical to Greenville in how we address things that are happening as they happen. I think this line of work can sort of give itself to reactivity alone. And what GHA has been able to create in these instances is that we can keep the conversation going. Previous to GHA, we had other sort of initiatives and roundtables and discussions and task force that we tried to encapsulate this huge policy agenda. We tried to associate it with issues that are both, in the past and how they sort of transfer into the future. And then now we're able to keep the light on the issues, which I think is something that has given us a lot of bandwidth to be able to wrap our hands around things, both as individuals from Greenville County, but also as the organizations that are slated to serve the folks who policy affects the most. And I think that GHA has done a tremendous job at keeping the issues being discussed, as well as keeping the heart of the issue at the center of the conversation, which are the people. GHA wouldn't exist without the community of helping organizations and citizens who feel called to serve the folks that we serve every day within these organizations. And GHA does a good job of giving a table to those discussions, giving voice to organizations that may not be as large as, say, the Salvation Army. And it's really been a community-based effort to address community-based issues. The most important GHA value to me is courage. Having the courage to do this work goes to a place of within myself where my personal courage comes from. It's the thought that courage is doing something and investing in something and believing in something where there are no guarantees that it'll do anything. I think that courage is the blank slate. Courage is not knowing and still being willing to invest in that area, because not knowing isn't enough to keep you out of looking at the deeper, more seated issue. And I know that courage is a part of how the Salvation Army has kept current with things in all of the communities where the Salvation Armies exist, is that the courage to look under, to look for, and to make space for people. That's a courageous endeavor. And, to think that we are creating conversations that are based in courage, creating, the authenticity of saying, we're not perfect as a community. We have imperfections, and we are, trying to address those things because we have all of our other GHA values in mind at the same time. We cannot be inclusive. We cannot be equitable. We cannot be pragmatic if we are not first courageous. And so I think that having the courage to look into self, and then knowing that self exists in a community and within an organization, and the incredible power that comes from a collective of people all pursuing the same object, all going after the same thing, I think is an incredible piece of this work that I'm not really sure all of us could look back 3 or 4 or 5 years ago and say, absolutely courage was the main thing. But it's been a courageous uphill battle this whole time. And it has been one that has had no guarantees. And we've all kept pace because of what we know it represents. I had an interesting upbringing here in Greenville. On the outside, everything looked perfect. And so on the inside, though, it was a big battle of self. It was trying to decide, where do I exist? Should I exist in this space? And similarly to a lot of the mindsets of the folks that I've now come to serve in my career is, I don't belong with anyone. And so to create space for belonging, I think that my 10-year-old self would react to the work that I'm doing by saying, so I really did make it. And that is one of the greatest things that this work has ever shown me, is to be there when it clicks, is to be part of someone's life through the hard parts, through the dark and messy, through the pieces that otherwise make no sense at all. And to know that when you look back and then are able to look forward, you can see that every hill, every valley, every dark moment had a bright spot. And the whole time you were the bright spot. And so I think that looking back, as my 10-year-old self was probably volunteering on this campus and, wasn't thinking of one day overseeing it, because she didn't believe in her very much. And now we come all these years later and, I really did make it and became something that is worthy beyond how I ever was taught to measure it.